So here we are, Anne.
Sitting comfortably, Dorian.
For our Universal Force podcast, Season 3, Episode 1.
Ooh.
Uno.
Possibilities in the air.
Yes. So, got to work on the ums.
Oh, the good memory. That was from Season 1. That was
The ums.
editing fact. Just remember you'll have to edit all of them later. So that's enough.
I got you.
To not say that word.
Yes. No ums. So Season 3, Episode 1. And to kick us off, how are you feeling today?
I feel pretty recharged and relaxed. It was a weekend of balance between doing some home work for our home searching, and visiting friends, and then taking care of our current home and catching up with family. It's Sunday. So those are my points of reflection. I think that I know I got lots of rest. So pretty damn swell overall.
Good. I can concur. Feels good. The weekend has been productive and also fun. Got to see a movie too. So shout out to iPick, taking care of us. Good movie. Shout out to Marvel, taking care of us. Also giving us fun entertainment, as generally always. Disney. And Industrial Light and Magic, who I highly recommend the documentary on that. But they did the special effects for this Marvel movie. So, along with a million other special effects companies, it was fun to now see them in action and feel like I know a little bit more about the process after watching that. But had fun with us going to the gym, trying out a new gym together. We haven't been to that gym before.
That's right.
Yeah, so that was cool. And also driving around and perusing some neighborhoods and other areas. So that was cool. And we had a good day. And the weekend was good. We've had some good times. Mm-hmm. And relaxing times too. Mm-hmm. And productive. Lots of production and relaxing and work. All the things. Mm-hmm. So for today, we are kicking off Season 3, Episode 1 with, I guess, a little state of affairs to where we are now, or what's going on, what's happening in this brand new season. So I guess one of the big things is we're deciding where we want to live.
Yeah, we have, in case you didn't know, from where we left off, we have moved to Miami, and we've been in the same area for 4 years, and it's time to expand and move somewhere new. And we're hunting. We're going around the neighborhoods. We don't generally spend a lot of time, some more than others, and are just weighing our options.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you know what I forgot to say, even too, we should probably introduce ourselves to who we are. For those who've not listened to any other episodes other than this.
Who are you, Dorian?
You can start.
I asked you.
Oh, okay. So we are, I'm going to go we first, and then I myself.
We're
Anne and Dorian. We are our Universal Force. We do this podcast to talk about relationships and life and the things that we learn going through our day-to-day and our experiences and whatever we think is helpful to share. But it is a relationship focused podcast. And I personally am Dorian, and I enjoy doing this. This is a fun way to share, as well as secularly having work in corporate world, and also at times playing in the entertainment world, music world. So yeah, that's who I am. And we are married now, going on 5 years. So that's a fun time to be starting our next season.
Yeah.
So 5 years of information under our belt. And when we started our first season, we were planning our wedding. So it is now time to enjoy the things that we've learned and share those. So that's kind of a easy tidbit on what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of momentous things going on this year. So it's fun.
We started 7 years ago when we were in our first year of getting together. We had just gotten engaged when we started the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I guess 6 or so. But this is where we're at now. So that's what's going to make this fun is, reflecting back on what we did and where we came from as a couple and the growth that we've had together, what we've discovered works and doesn't work for us, and that journey, and how as individuals we're shaping our lives, so we can enjoy each other and share the things that we're discovering inside of the world of sex and exercise and lifestyle. So for me, my profession as Anne is a fitness design for women, and I conduct personal training sessions for busy ladies. And I love that work because I love fitness myself. And besides that, I love selecting music, choosing music through vinyl or digital for my friends and family, sometimes playing out professionally. And I have just relaunched my fitness business about 3 months ago. So we're learning all about that together. And I'm just excited to set off this here podcast. So let's get the show on the road.
All right. So
what's our topic for today?
I don't think we actually picked one. So we have bunch of things we're going to talk about, but I don't think we picked a highlight topic like we had in prior seasons. Probably next episode we'll get back to that format, but today's kind of going to be a weird free for all. We have some things we're going to talk about though.
We did just sit down and say, hey, let's do this yesterday, and then made some show notes for ourselves probably about an hour ago. So the topic is slightly lucid here, but we did want to talk about, if I'm getting this correct here, our current theme in life, which is figuring out where to live and what kind of lifestyle we're basically going to embark upon in that choice.
Yeah, that's a big area that is on our mind and taking up a lot of our current time. And over the next couple months, it's going to be a major life change, is just moving, as moving always is, but moving for our fourth time together now. This will be our fourth.
This will be our fourth
place since we've been together. So we're doing things a little bit differently. The past, we've mostly been in apartments, condos, that sort of arrangement, and we're looking to try to get into something that's not in a building, a house or something similar. So that's a change for us. We've also lived in city or city-ish places, mostly city, for our entire time. So we're also looking to be out of the immediate city, within a few miles, not
the
like
suburbs.
the suburbs, or as close to the suburbs as you can get while still being nearby a major city. So
Yes.
yeah, that's what we're trying to figure out, and that's been a big, lots of conversations, lots of reevaluating, and in the process we've also talked to a lot of people who are making similar decisions, but for different reasons. Family and friends who are trying to decide where they want to live and what's going to be the next living experience for them, and their lives. And so it's been interesting to hear what they're thinking, what they have been, what's been weighing on their mind as far as where, the why, what things are important to them, where they live, what kind of community, what kind of home, space, all that. And then us then having to say, hey, it's time for us to make this decision. Also trying to weigh those same factors in. And it is a different process. When we moved, our last big move was to Miami from Brooklyn. But then, and we laid that out very strategically. But now that we're, and that makes sense when you're moving states, but now it's kind of like we could be moving 2 miles away, 3 miles away, 4 miles away. And it's different things that we're looking for, different priorities. So it's a new ballgame in that sense.
So when people move, oftentimes they're thinking about, well, what are the non-negotiable must-haves? And then what are the things that would be great if they were there, but if they're not, that's okay too. So what's on our list?
Well, I think one of the things, and let me know, chime in when there's things I'm missing or something's not right. But one of the things is we need more space. We need more space.
Yes.
So we want to go from a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo, basically, to something that's more of a 3-4 bedroom. Probably 3-bedroom is more realistic, but we also have a separate office that's not outside in another building. That's a 1-bedroom that we use for office space and for family staying over and similar, family and friends staying over and similar. So, we want to try to have as much space as we have with 2 places in one, if not a little bit bigger. We both have businesses. We both have our own businesses. So we both basically work remote, work from home. So we need to have enough space for that. But we also do, we exercise daily. So we need space to do that. We, have our DJ setups, multiple, tons of records. We want to have space to enjoy all the areas of life and not have it feel so cramped, as what we try to do, to pile a lot of those things into one space. So I think that's one of the big things. And then the second is also, we're in the middle of the city now, we're in the busiest part of Miami, basically. So it'll be nice to, move out of that busy of an area into something that's just quieter, less traffic, less people. on a daily basis. And so that's influencing also, the wear a lot, but we also want it to feel good. We want to enjoy it when we come home. This is a big, at least for me, like coming home, when we are coming home, I want to feel good about what I'm coming home, what area I'm coming home to, or walking outside for the first time of the day, feel good about the neighborhood that I'm in. So, there's that. And we want to stay out of a flood zone if at all possible.
New things to consider. It's no longer, there must be a washer and dryer. The houses and condos here have washers and dryers. It's not Brooklyn. But now is it in a flood zone? It's definitely got to be out of that flood zone area.
Yeah.
So you've done a great job researching those parameters, and there's some options. So having a house, I think that's a big move for us, because we've lived in condos and apartments while being together. And so it's going to be, it's been a while since I've lived in a house, but I'm excited for that, because we're going to have a space where we can spread out, and we can have, yes, our work and coexist with that. And we've done that well already. But if we can designate that space from kind of where we live and hang out and do our hobbies and things, I think that'll be really sweet. And especially in a neighborhood where we feel comfortable, it's safe, it's somewhere that's not too far from what we already like doing, that would be ideal. And a lot of it's timing, just seeing what's out there on the market. So I think that covers that, right?
Yeah, I think it's I think one of the things that it was just interesting to for me in the process is reevaluating. Like, this is where the learning part comes in. Over the past years of us together, and just thinking back to all the times I've moved. In the past, it's now it's thinking along the lines of what feels good for us, not necessarily because there's some reason why you have to move. It's not because of work. It's not, picking out an area that's good for the school district. It's not, some proximity to something that needs to happen.
Right.
This is a very much what's going to make us feel good every day when we're home and in our life. It's a different, kind of consideration. And it's a new thought process to have. For me personally, it's, I've never really had that. It was like, what's available for the price? What can I afford?
Exactly.
In my price? And that's always a conversation.
How is it close? Is it to campus or to work?
Work, yeah.
There's not that now. So it's unique and it opens up more possibility. The things we want to be close to is like a cafe.
Or gym.
And a gym.
A gym. Yeah.
And a grocery store. And even the grocery store, it's like, I like grocery shopping, but I can also order groceries now.
It's a new world.
And we have options, and there is a new possibility.
Yeah.
And this is going to be taking place within the next 3 months.
Yep.
So we're doing our due diligence. We're going on field trips in the neighborhoods.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I think, a good learning. We did that. I think for me, I've always done this. I would go drive around areas, or like in New York, take a subway, see what it felt like to take the subway to the neighborhood, and how did the subways run. And,
I did not do that.
Yeah. But you lived in you lived in one neighborhood.
Williamsburg
right?
proper.
Yeah. So I definitely did that. Those little field trips, and would like wander around and was like, how does this feel? And then once I found places, I was like, okay, how many stops is this from? Like, when I get off the subway, is this like 20 blocks in?
See, this is why we're a good fit and I could speak for myself why you're a good fit for me is because your logistical brain and the context in which what it was you would emotionally like comes into play from a more realistic perspective when you do all this homework and you put it into perspective. What would that be like for you? And I think that's great for me because a lot of times my decisions, I'm working through this now more so in my upper 30s. I dive in head first and it's an emotional decision and I just figure it out. But I don't want to do that anymore. And we're not doing that. And a big part of that's because of you and your logic. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, thank you. And I will say there is an emotional side to it, but I'm trying to think about what's going to play on my emotions later now. So I'm using logic to try to help make the emotional space much better decision.
Like what would an example be like as far as a house goes? Like choosing a house.
I think
that emotional space later.
A proximity to a gym. I know emotionally if I don't have the gym nearby, it's going to be much harder for me. I'm not going to go as much. I'm not going to work out as much, which is going to affect how my overall health is, which is going to affect my emotions on how I feel about myself. So it's thinking a couple of steps ahead and saying, okay, how can I logically make a decision for the things that I know are going to affect my emotions? Do we have how much sunlight do we see because of trees and everything else? What direction are we facing on the block? Those eventually will affect your emotions. If we have a good view, we're going to feel good in the mornings when we wake up and we look outside and we have a backyard, or, we're not looking directly into a neighbor's property or to a neighbor's front window, and that makes us feel negative. In things that make us feel negative, thinking about what those are and saying, okay, let's logically not see how to avoid those, and things that make us feel positive, that's going to put us in a good emotional space. Try to encourage those or get more of those, but thinking about what those are and then trying to actively pursue those things. And that's where the logic, I feel like you're using emotion still the end result, but I think using logic to get to the best emotional space with a big decision, helps for you to feel better about that decision later. But if it's all logic and it's just like, is this the right price for the right amount of bedrooms for the and we're not thinking about emotionally what we're going to feel about some of these other things, and you make a decision that you later don't like. And if it's just straight emotion, oh, I saw the front of this house, it was gorgeous, and that was it, and you didn't think about all the other factors around it, then there's also going to be some downward things that are going to, kind of quell that initial feeling. So I think figuring out how to marriage both, is the direction I try to go in.
That's nice. Well, it takes a good amount of mindfulness and knowing what certain things make you feel a certain way, and what's the benefit of those decisions, and how much do you need that in your life? Like at this stage in my life, I don't need to go out every weekend to bars or to nightclubs and dance. It's not the top priority.
Right.
It's something that I need, but less of. And so having a home that's further away from those places is going to be all right.
Right.
And I also am aware that it'll take some prep to go and plan for driving to those places or get a ride. And I'm going to get a little less sleep.
Right.
So those life decisions come into play when we're talking about our emotions.
Yeah.
But it's logical as well, because then we're planning how the life is, most likely going to go.
Yeah. Agreed. I think that's a good point. Yeah. So I think it's a our collective learnings and feelings about, where we've lived, what things we've liked in the past, going all the way back, to our childhoods, what things we've liked, what things we haven't liked, what things we wish we had, didn't have. Those kind of help fuel the decision-making process now, when we have an opportunity to try to get something that really feels good for no other purpose than living in a place that feels good, within the same, and obviously financially making sure it's something that financially makes sense for us.
Well, and that's where the logistic part comes in. Totally. But initially, when you're looking for a place to live, it's definitely, you have that feeling, that sensation of, oh, this is it, or this is not it.
Yep.
And certainly being attuned to that initially, and then ensuring everything else falls into play is key.
Totally. Cool. I think that's great. I think that's good. And more to come as over the next few, episodes, as we're making that decision over the next couple of months, we'll see where it all lands.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And speaking of that, I guess, before we jump into, some of the other, areas or topics we want to talk about, I think one thing we brought up that's interesting. And you brought it up when you were giving your intro too, is, just our lifestyle as a whole. Our lifestyle is, revolves a lot around, work, but it also revolves a lot around, exercise. That's been something that's been big, for us, much more so than when we did season 1. Season 2, we were, I think at the time starting, I feel like we were doing a little bit more than what we had been doing in season 1 by the time we recorded our season 2 episodes.
That was the pandemic.
Yeah, so we were just starting,
I don't even think we had started.
Oh, okay. So that was
I think we were just at home figuring it out.
Okay. So that's
it was
different.
Yes, we rolled into a much more, we got that out of the pandemic, living a much more
right
physically active life in a much more intentional way.
Right.
Beyond going out dancing, which is great.
Yes.
This is more like strategic weightlifting and cardiovascular exercise, mobility, flexibility training, balanced with that.
Yeah. I think that's been the lifestyle. One of the things that we discovered or decided on, either way, was how do we make exercise, an exercise for the point of being healthier overall, a part of our life for the rest of our life. And I think that's something we talked about a bit. And at least for me, it was like motivation as we were like getting started and saying, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? How am I going to do this? How do I get up every day or every other day or whatever the schedule is and do this? And it was like, I need to do things that I can do for the next 20 to 30 years. This isn't just, I'm doing this to get to, because I want to look good for this thing or be for this thing or lose 5 pounds or 10 pounds or 20 pounds or 50 pounds for this thing. It's like, no, how do I make exercise a regular part of my life forever? Mm-hmm. And that kind of has been the up and down kind of thought process, going, for the past, few years now. And I think we've went at it in different iterations and different ways of trying to do that. But I think we've discovered good patterns and habits to make that a regular part of our life that we can maintain, as far as I can see. Yeah.
I have to give you credit for first helping me conceptualize that. Because I was a young athlete. I played multiple sports, and then I was an outdoor enthusiast doing pretty rigorous activity in the mountains. And when you told me I was dealing with an injury, and you said, well, what are you going to do exercise wise to ensure that you can wake up and work out every day for the rest of your life? So just this, what you're speaking to now, you brought up to me maybe 4 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And it really started making me think about, well, how do I make sure I'm not pushing myself too hard? Right. Because that is something that I was doing. And it's so common too for athletes. And, you know, I can be super hard on myself within my physical abilities and just within a sport, or if I have an injury, you know, being hard on myself about that. But I've really been able to step back and look at the big picture, like, well, how can I have a well-rounded workout and only push myself so far? Right. And with my clients, it's like 2 and 8, like workout 2 and 8 on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you're super out of breath, full sprint. Most people aren't going to go to a 10, you know, more than a couple times a week or even at all. And so just kind of, I'm keeping it in that zone of like 8, 8.5, maybe hitting a 9 with my healthy body on a couple days a week. But then other days it's fairly low, between a 6 to an 8. And I feel that I've been rocking with that for probably the past 3 years, and I feel pretty good. Besides dealing with some injuries, which are going to come, I feel good. I feel like I'm able to sustain that, and that my energy is well. So I feel invigorated by my workouts, and they're not so exhausting that I have to take off a couple days, or I'm so sore that, you know, I'm crawling into this next workout I have to do.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, that's a good point, that the injuries are going to come. I like the thought about staying at like an 8, you know, getting to an 8 a few times, not staying at 8, but getting to an 8, you know, a few times. But that's where you kind of cap yourself. You know, unless you're feeling really good, you're kind of peaked and you can push it a little bit, but not doing that too often. And I think that's, you know, I'm still in that space of learning where my body is, like discovering where my body is, to know, okay, what am I doing right now? Is this at a 7 or is this at a 6? What feels the best? Because I've noticed sometimes, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm not lifting. You know, I alternate between lifting and cardio, like low impact cardio, and stretching and flexibility. But within those, there's times where I may notice, like, yeah, my cardio has been more of like a 5, you know, a continuous 5 for a long time. When do I need to push that a little bit? And it feels good to push that. I can't push it all the time. You know, same thing with lifting weights. It's like, yeah, I've had times where my body needed to lift heavy and to feel good. And there's some times where I was lifting too heavy, way too much, and it needed to drop by half, you know, from dealing with weight, how much I was lifting, and just do my full workout. And my body felt amazing, you know, for that. And then figure out how to alternate that. And we talked about this a few months ago about being able to reset your workout, you know, the weights of, you know, the amount of, you know, pounds that you're lifting, if we're going to use that, in resetting that. So you have that, you know, reach that peak, you're at that peak for a while, then you drop and let everything reset, and maybe change which exercise you're doing, whatever you're doing. So I think that's been helpful, figuring that balance out, because that is how you're able to maintain doing it on a regular basis, multiple times a week, every week for the rest of your life, is being able to gauge what feels right for my body. And it's going to change. You know, like this year I turned 50. So what feels good now is different than what felt good 15, 20 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago. Even when I'm comparing, you know, I like using apps to track how much I'm lifting per exercise and reps and sets, so I can like look back, you know, for 5, 6 years or longer, I've been tracking it that way, and see where my, you know, what my reps were, how much I was lifting, you know, what the weight for every exercise is. And I can see where I've peaked and where I was. And I can see, yeah, there's like overall, I may be lifting, you know, less weight, but the consistency is there. So that, makes a big difference to me. I don't need to necessarily be maxing out.
Mm-hmm. Well, think of this too. I'm not sure. I guess maybe like bears and animals that hibernate, they like during spring, they're out there, they're hunting and eat, gathering their food, all that, playing. And then they do a bunch of that. And then right before the weather comes, they go in their hole and they stay there.
Right.
And then they do nothing.
Right.
But I'm not sure that humans are so much like that. And I don't always like the conversation of comparing us to animals, because there's so many different types of animals, and
it's a whole wide world of difference there.
Yes, there's some DNA. There's quite a bit of DNA comparison and the way we communicate better with some animals. But it's just an idea that I'm spitting that I think rather than going on a full out, this is for general exercise, folks. Okay. So for the athletes listening, I'm just speaking to the general exercise. To lift weights and go heavy and then kind of just like stop and then start back up again later. I think it's best to just like do more or less like moderate exercise. And this is also speaking with my professional hat on, and from what I've seen from people who just want to have a more physically active lifestyle is to just, that seems to be what works best, and to give the variety throughout by lifting heavier and then, adding variabilities in between each exercise day or workout. But to just that's the way that you keep it going. And you can insert play and fun in there too, but it certainly enables you to be able to have fun and do playful things and have better sex. I noticed our sex, the endurance and the movement is so much more, it's juicier. It's like smoother. There's better flow within it.
Right.
And that's a real life result from exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you feel, on that, I think specific topic, I think we feel, one of the things that I'm guessing is that we feel, or assume that we feel better in our bodies too. We're in tune with our own selves, which just makes us easier to be in tune with each other. And we do get to work out. We don't work out together, but we do get to work out together.
I see you in the gym.
Yeah, we see each other in the gym, at least once a week. And we probably stretch next to each other probably once a week, or something similar too, just because our workout schedules are different. But it does, I think it helps us in our sex life. It helps us in our everyday, we're very similar in what we can physically do. So if we're going to, we went to Disney a few, weeks ago, and, aside from injury, our stamina to be able to walk the parks and, or,
there.
Yeah, it was
10
there.
miles.
Right. Exactly. Or we're going to do if we're we want to go do this thing where it's probably going to be walking around, we're very in tune, because we both have a regular regimen of stretching and weightlifting and cardio and things, it's easy to gauge what's going to be doable together, and know okay, well, this will probably hit our limits there, or one of us will, we know where we're at. And so I think it kind of helps us to be able to do things together in a way that works for both of us, because we're, and I know that's, for some couples, that's couples that are very active together. I see that they have that kind of thing similar too. The few couples I know that are, that we know that are active also, I can see that in them, that they do a lot of similar things together. And from an energy standpoint, they're in the same space.
I can't imagine. I know couples where it's different.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Whereas one works out more and the other doesn't, or it's just different types of exercise, or one is more of a night person, one's more of a day, and it works. But I could see there being either misunderstanding or a need for more communication around understanding each other, because there is that difference.
Right.
And I've always wanted a boyfriend who was physically fit and interested in exercise, because I'm a very physical, playful person, and I'm really glad that you have that in you too, even though we're not exercising together. Like you're saying, we're on that same frequency.
Yeah. And we can talk about it. That's something, that is new for me in our relationship, is being able to talk about, you can tell me, hey, I was doing this machine and I was on this thing, or I was doing this particular stretch, or, whatever it is, and I can picture it and see it, and sometimes ask questions and give input, and that's not my field. It's not like I do what you do for work. But because I am interested in it, and I'm interested in my own body and how it works. Like we can talk about things, or I can come and be like, oh, you know what, I did this, I changed my weights up this day and this is that. And we can have conversations and understand and support each other in a way that would never a conversation that I've ever had before, in any relationship I've been in. Like, I didn't talk about
I love those conversations.
Yeah, I think it's great. Yeah,
it is. And it just is another way of connecting. It's another conversation that really is applicable, and it's important to each of us. So we have that relatability.
Yeah.
In that zone.
And it's our sport in a way, as what, people who play couples who play golf together or go play tennis together or whatever, things they do, like ours happens to revolve around, fitness.
Gym going.
Gym
and
walking.
walking.
And So
which gym and which walkway will we be walking on and gymming to?
I don't know.
We'll see.
Will we be building our own? It's all a conversation. All right. So we got that fitness, kind of threw that in there a bit. And I think that was a good, something that we had never talked about ever in our podcast before. So that was I don't think that we've ever talked about it.
I don't think we did. Because we weren't doing it.
So yeah, I think that's a good to have thrown that in there. And you'll probably hear lots of different iterations of thoughts as we continue our podcast, since it is a big part of our lifestyle now. So one of the other topics, you want to go into one of the other topics that we had?
Yeah. Let's talk about lube.
Okay, yes. Helpful tools.
Yeah.
We called this, what did we call this? Our treasure chest before?
Pleasure chest.
Pleasure chest. That's right. Pleasure chest, Seth.
And so we have something for you. So we've been playing with different lubes, and one that we were really, really into was Uber Lube. And we may have discussed, I'm almost sure we've discussed this before in season 1. And still great lube for its combination of silicone and water base. It works with toys that are silicone based and rubber. And then it's also just really soft on the skin. And because of the silicone, I suspect the smoothness stays.
Yes. Yeah.
Another one that we use and have perhaps discussed was from Dame. And it has these natural products inside. I really like the Dame for its natural products, and for stroking Dorian, it just lasts. You don't need to use a ton of it. However, both of those I noticed was causing a bit of irritation inside of me with insertion.
Right.
So I'm being very, very vulnerable and honest with you listeners right now. I was dealing with quite a bit of vaginal irritation, just some itchiness, sometimes even deeper, some pelvic pain with sex. And so I really approached it from all levels. Like, this was not necessarily a scientific method where I took one thing out and saw how I felt, observed those sensations. It was kind of like I addressed it all at once. So I actually visited with a pelvic floor physiotherapist. I got a full eval, outer and inner, and it was great because I didn't really know what I was feeling for, or what sensations might have been either tight or looser. So in her analysis, she just found a little area that was kind of tight, and it wasn't even a trigger point. We're talking about the muscles of the pelvic floor here. So she was able to release it with me in just a few movements in like 30 seconds. And then she gave me some exercises to do just to stay a little bit looser in my hip muscles. We'll just call them hip muscles, on the outer sides. So during that time, I was also discovering different lubes. So in the process, I came across Playground Lube. So that's a company that creates, I don't know if it's also just feminine products for vaginal health and lube or what, but I discovered through their products that they used some ingredients that were much less just irritating for the vagina. So I bought one, we tried it, and that combination helped, and I've been feeling good. I had previous to that bought some of the like cranberry tablets to take. I don't think that was necessarily helping.
Right.
But it might. It's a little bit of a trial and error situation.
Yes.
And I still have the cranberry tabs. I have the boric acid tabs that I insert.
Yep.
I am not a doctor, everybody. Just heads up here. We're speaking from experience. We're not speaking in medical terms or giving anybody direct suggestions.
These are not medical advice. We are not medical professionals.
You're going to have to do what you do, and talk to your own medical professionals and get their advice, and make your decision. So this is what I did. And I thought that what was just really powerful about this was that the lube made a tremendous difference for me as far as vaginal irritation goes. Yes. So that is something for you listeners to maybe toy around with.
Yeah. Yeah. Lube in general. If you're not using it, you should. Probably, I think you should. That's my personal opinion. Lube is a great thing. That's something that's, I wish someone that would have been the very first piece of advice I wish someone had have gave me, decades ago was always use lube. Yeah, great, done. And then discover which kinds works, because decades ago there was only one or two that were available anywhere within your hemisphere. But now we have all of the options.
I
and
would
all
just
the
use
research.
spit.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, lube is great. It's a great medical, it's a great invention. Thank you, whoever invented it.
It's nice.
Yeah.
And there's some really good ones out there.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad
and
you
different lube for different things, because we still use the Uber lube and the Dame,
we probably
and
have
we'll
like
keep
3 or 4
exploring different ones.
Yeah.
But I know that my vagina can only tolerate certain lubes.
Right. Exactly.
And you've been a really great partner in working with me with that, and it's important, and it's been important for me to establish that base and let you know, hey, this doesn't work. So when it's time, like, wash your hands, switch it up,
Yeah.
rinse your cock,
Yeah. You got to
and
do all
then
the.
we'll just re-lube up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that little bit of health, little bit of finding what works and taking that extra care means that just like the exercise, you can repeat it and do it.
You can do more of it.
Getting a bladder infection or any of those things,
Urinary tract
infection, right? Like if you can avoid that by changing lubes, cleaning in a different way, both partner, whatever you're doing, cleaning, like materials, like using cotton. If you're noticing, take a look. If you're having any kind of discomfort or anything that doesn't seem to be feeling right, look at everything.
Your laundry detergent,
yeah,
and the type of towels that you're using. I just use cotton towelettes for my vagina.
Yeah, we
instead of a towel, even for that, and with my face.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. I don't use a washcloth for my face. So that the skin is different. I don't know the science behind all of that, but there is certainly a difference in the tolerability of my skin.
Yeah. And we've noticed that even with, like you said, laundry detergent, different allergens that plays an effect on your body. It's so many things.
So many things, but don't overwhelm yourself too much.
Yeah.
Just explore. And that's what we're
find a lube that works.
saying. Yeah. I mean, that could be an option.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many. Another helpful tool is that books. So we have a ton of different books, some hardcover, some, at least for me, audiobooks.
What's your favorite?
Oh, I have so many favorites.
Well, what's one? Or you could list them off.
I don't know. I'm going to mess up the names and the authors.
Put them in the show notes.
Probably not, but we'll bring them up as we come across.
Keeping this simple.
But yeah, books. I think we brought this up because one book that you're reading that I had read or did an audiobook to, which one is it now? Is it
Emily Nagoski, and it's Coming Together. Coming Together.
Right. I keep thinking Come As You Are. That's why I think it's the second one.
Which is the first book, which I read, and you audiobooked. And
actually, that one I read.
Oh, you read that one?
I read that one. Okay. I have Come As You Are book. I read that one.
Okay. Sweet.
I think I read it, but I read it on like on my phone or something like that. But yeah.
Great information.
Yeah.
On individual, it goes from individual growth and learning yourself to also how that correlates to your relationship. And that's really what it is, folks. In a relationship is learning where you come from and how you relate to love and how you relate to fear and envy and joy, and how your relationship, how you show up in your relationship from that place. But Come Together is so wonderful because she elaborates on that and shares how you can, these are my words, really leverage your relationship in moments to come out of certain spaces like fear, anxiety, or help teach your partner how you may be able to get to a joyful space.
Right.
And they might be able to facilitate that with you, or at least see you when you're down.
Right.
And understand a bit about what that experience might be for you and where that might occur for you. We've all heard the words about triggers. And so I think that when our partners understand what triggers us or heightens our awareness, they can really support us in those spaces, and we can support them. It goes the same way. We can educate them and wonder about where they're coming from and what their history is in certain areas of their emotion. And that is what brings us closer together.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. I thought that book, it did dive into some interesting ways of how relating to yourself, helps you with relating to your partner and getting you in the space where you are. I think what was the term she used? It was looking for
something seeking.
Yeah, I can't think of what it is, but the idea was that, you're finding ways to find pleasure yourself, and that's going to help you be able to enjoy the many pleasurable things that are available within your relationship. So that's the idea. That's my very narrow, easy definition for myself to come to.
I think I recall that.
No, not desire. It was the other one. It wasn't desire, but it was defining pleasure. Finding pleasure, or like trying to develop. Like, I need to have that desire. It's like, no, back that out. And like that's nice and all, but you could be searching for a desire all the time and never actually find it. But finding what brings you pleasure, that is going to, you're going to reach that. And you're, that's a step in the direction to go, not trying to figure out how to find that feeling of desire.
It's inside of you.
Right.
It's
exactly.
Completely accessible and there. Right. And it doesn't have to look like one thing or the other. It might be snuggling. It might be watching a show together.
Right.
It might be drinking or eating something. Having a shared experience,
going for a walk, doing a podcast.
Right. That's massive. It's not always about having sex. And we went through a stage, with maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
I think it was about 2 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, or give your input too. Speaking to this, where we weren't having sex as regularly.
Okay. Yeah.
And, for whatever reason, I don't even know that I can declare what it was, but it was that we were worried about that kind of. And it was like, that was our time where we were spending our moments being intimate and connecting, and there wasn't a ton outside of that. We hadn't yet really started our exercises together, but we also, I don't think we're having as like, we kind of like lost sight of our date nights, and there were pleasurable things that we weren't accessing. So when we weren't having sex, there just didn't seem to be much. And so that came with planning sex nights and having that happen. And perhaps this is a segue into our next and last topic. Then that turned into, well, now this is becoming a little stressful because it just seems like we have this pressure of having to have sex on these sex nights when we're not necessarily wanting to. And so it turned into, well, let's create a more intimate space for each other at least. And maybe it's just that we lying in bed together without our cell phones and, our proverbial backpacks of work and things. Right. And so we were doing that more, and that really let our guard down a bit.
Right. And I think we were comparing it at the time to, well, why is it like this now? And it wasn't like this a year ago, or, or for our first year or two, whatever it was. So it was letting some of that go, and then also letting go what our expectations are of what it should be, or what we think it should be, or why is it not what we feel it should be,
or even what it is we want. Like being attached to the desires.
I want it to feel like this, or I want to feel like this, or
that's fine,
right? But that's leading up to that sets expectations, and then you can't live up to it, and you feel bad, and it does this big snowball. This bad downhill snowball avalanche. So I think
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Good.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, I forgot now. It's good.
Oh man.
Is it? It'll come back.
Okay, I hope so.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, you got it.
Well, we don't do that now. We haven't had like designated sex nights, but what we did do is I bought Dorian these sex tokens for his birthday
Years ago.
Yeah, and we didn't use them. They were in our we actually do have a pleasure chest at home now, and it houses our sex stuff. Mm-hmm. And so these were sitting in there, and we pulled them out.
Yeah, probably. I think it dawned on. I don't know. I was reading something. I was reading a book or one of the books. I don't think it was Come Together or Come As You Are. I don't even think the book was. It might have been the one that deals with the childhood attachment theory book. I think it's called Attachment Theory.
Oh,
that was great, and that was a great something I learned in a completely another book that popped up, and I read that book about attachment theory. But it was something in that space, and it kind of dawned on me. I was like, oh yeah, I have like got me these tokens. And I never really felt I had a good, I didn't know how I wanted to use them. And that was like, I thought they were a good idea, but I was like, I don't know if I just want to like pick a token out. Like in my mind, I was like, I'm going to look through these and I'm going to say, okay, I want to do this thing on this token. And here's a token to do it. Which is completely fine way. I just wasn't attached to that idea of doing it that way. But that was just like the one way that when I first got them in my head thought that I was supposed to how I was supposed to use it. And then it dawned on me, I was like, oh, there's a million different ways to go about this, or there's plenty of other ways, not a million, but plenty of ways to go about this. What would be one that feels good? And I was like, it would feel more fun to me to be able to like randomly pick one to make it a together activity, pick one together, like, let's dump these into like a picket box, and like pick something out. And then I don't know if at the same time you had came up with your box of ideas, or maybe your box of ideas came out first. And then I thought to use this with the tokens, but we did. So these tokens have different sex and intimacy, ideas or acts or something to do on them. It could be like a sexual position. It could be like some kind of foreplay situation. It could be, they're all over the place, but they're all sex related. And then we came up with the idea. I don't know if you came up with it or in therapy we came up with it, but to write down a bunch of things that you would like us to do or me to do or something of that nature. And I think that came out of my desires. Yeah. Okay.
And I was in this space of, I'm not getting this. I want this, and that just gets old because it doesn't resolve itself until you do something about it. So that's my thing where this box came out of. It was like all of my little desires in my head. Right. And I put them on paper in this box.
Right. And so we decided to.
We each have our own
So I have
box and token.
I have this jar of tokens, and then has this box of ideas, and so I have this jar of tokens, and Anne has this box of ideas, and we pick them as we're completing them. They don't have to be completed at the same time, although sometimes it does happen. So like I pick a token, and the idea is that I pick a token, and it's okay for Anne to then make this whatever it is happen, whenever it's going to happen, and then Anne will pick.
Except for last night. You did your own token to me.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And that sometimes happens.
Like that.
Yeah, sometimes it works out that way. And then Anne has her box of her slips of paper of different desires or ideas, and she'll pick it. And then it's for me to make that thing happen. So that's been super helpful.
It's random and it's fun. And it gives us information about what the other person is into, and it rolled into more of a conversation of us asking each other what each other wants and what we're needing. But either way, like, it's fun and it's playful, and it's just another way to initiate sex, and keep
And
that
intimacy.
connection. Yeah, with the intimacy as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. I think that's been a good idea. Oh, and I'm going to add one more to this list of
This is the bonus.
helpful tools and pleasure chats. It's been our monthly meeting, which was weekly or biweekly or was something, but we have a monthly meeting where
It's an administrative meeting.
Yes. But
And it's not sexy, but it's been efficient and helpful in communicating.
Yeah. And we do talk about sex in it. Sex is one of our...
That's a category.
Yeah. So we pretty much have a once a month, we have a dedicated hour, half hour, however long it takes, where we go through a kind of like specific list of topics that we just discussed together. It's checking in to see where we're at right now. We talk about our finances. We talk about our sex life. We talk about our health. We talk about our goals, short-term goals. We talk about any travel that's coming up. We talk about anything miscellaneous. Maybe I'm missing something, but
right now the temporary houses section is
we have a house section, but we go through all of those things, and we have a shared Google Doc that we fill in, and we actually take the time, maybe 10 minutes or half hour beforehand, and we fill it all in. And then we just sit there and we take turns. Anne takes a turn. She goes through the first topic. Then I'll go through the next topic. And then we'll go back and forth through, and we just listen. And if there is anything that we would like to discuss further, we do. But it's really a time for the other person to talk and for us, the other person, to listen and them to share. And it's uninterrupted time of just sharing. We're not on our phones. We're not watching TV. We're not doing anything else. But we're discussing these things that normally in our day-to-day life we don't talk about, or we wouldn't talk about unless there was a reason for it to come up. But it's our time to kind of share and to get onto the same page where we are. We were doing it bi-weekly, and then we changed it to monthly just because some things were staying the same within 2 weeks. These things weren't changing very much, because sometimes, your finances may or may not change, or travel may or may not change, or, what you're dealing with in your health may or may not change, your short-term goals may not change within 2 weeks. So monthly is a little bit easier. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
And it's nice to go back and see, as you're editing for that meeting, where you've come. And
Right.
Same thing as with the tokens and strips. It's not that we're not having these conversations together. It's a moment of reflection that's really honored in that time.
Right.
And I have to say, like, to my own horn here, I am proud of myself for this, and I'm proud of you for this, because I'm really proud to be in this relationship for the fact that we have this level of maturity where we can sit down, see each other eye to eye, have this conversation about life circumstances and what's happening, and be honest with each other, and just like we care. We want to live a full life together.
Right. Yeah.
So this is one way that we see that working. And this idea is not new.
No. I got it. I read it. I've read it in a few different books, and podcasts I've heard it on. The idea stemmed out of like poly world books. But then I've heard it in other spaces too. And I feel like at some point I was like, this is something we need to do. I think it really dawned on me talking about things that I realized we weren't talking about were finances, and we weren't talking about our sex life, like in a dedicated space, like our goals and travel plans. Those were things that we but maybe even short-term goals. We maybe talked about that every year on our anniversary or on New Year's or whatever. But that was important, I think.
Well, and in full disclosure, I had previous relationships where finances were an issue, and not discussed.
Right.
And so I still had that baggage,
Yeah.
and that I did bring that into our relationship. And same thing. It's like, well, it's not going to be something that just goes away. This is going to be something that I need to discuss with you. I understand its origin.
Yeah.
And now it's about creating a shift where there is trust, and that just revolved around open communication, writing things out so I could see, and having that clear picture. And so you are willing to do that. And that's, I couldn't ask for anything more than you embracing this really like fearful spot in me to create now an area of trust and where I can relax and there's an understanding. So I think that that's something that could be valuable for anybody listening who might be carrying something with them into this relationship, that they really care about this person, really just having that dedicated time to discuss whatever the topics may be.
Whatever you want to do.
Just spill the beans, retouch back in a month. It'll bring you closer together.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, whatever it is, and this is just our format for what we decided worked best for us. But and we also still have therapy regularly and all the other pieces. So we do a lot of talking and discussing things all the time. So it isn't like this is the only time we talk, but it is like this is a very formatted and way to bring in discussions that may not be a part of your normal day to day or week to week or whatever. And speaking on that, it's like one of the things that, as we're kind of wrapping up, one of the big areas for us has just been, our family life and balancing, our relationship. How do we do that? It's been I come from, having kids already, as most people know who's listened to this before. So Anne walks into, has joined the relationship, becoming a stepmom. We live in a different state than our whole relationship. We live in a different state than, where our families are. We very rarely have had families living nearby us, whether it's our parents or whether it's our siblings or whether it's our kids or whether it's our grandparents or whoever's we love, if we have any, that's around us. That hasn't been, it's not like we see our family week to week, day to day, month to month. Even it's like we have to put forth the effort into being in touch with them or going to see them. And so that's been a big part, especially it feels like over the last, I think it's always been a big part, but more so as our kids are getting older, and they're embarking on new changes and things in their life, as our parents are getting older, as other family members are going through different life changes, and how we support them in the many different ways that we can. Generally, it's by, conversations and being around when they have something and being there for them, maybe financially, whatever it is, but it's how to balance that with our relationship and also, taking our relationship in the direction that we're forging and going. And so that's always that's a nice, interesting balancing act. And I know lots of different people in relationships are going through that in very big at different iterations, however it is. So that's been, I think that's been a learning, and it's been progressively learning and progressively being interesting. And I feel like I would like to pat us on the back. I think we've been, doing well with it, or at least trying our best, or trying hard to do that, to put our family, put our family as a priority, but also put ourselves as a couple, as a priority also.
Well, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our families.
Right.
And the kids being younger, or our parents being older, they still have a tremendous impact on who we are and where we are now.
Yep.
And I can see I'll speak to my parents getting older and this new relationship I have with them, where I'm now in my adulthood, my career is booming. It's their lives that are slowing down in retirement, and when they come to visit us, there's just a huge sense of relaxation and us really wanting to take care of them. And I think that responsibility is implied just because of where we're at in our lives and where they're at in theirs in comparison. But it's also something that I'm really enjoying doing. And I'm really enjoying seeing them in this space of new discovery and taking life a little bit slower, but still really remaining active and almost even more active in their way of staying physically active and through travel and just adventure. And
right.
It's very sweet to see. And at the same time, the kids are getting older and taking on new experiences. And there's just some peace of mind that it brings me. And that's, it's a nice position and place in time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's fun, and especially when we let it be, to get to experience all these different feelings with our family and friends. And it's fun to also be still building the you and I family too, and seeing how that orbits with all the other orbits of our families and how they're changing and what's going on. It is, it's beautiful, and it's really nice to see, this now. I don't know if 5 years ago, 7 years ago, I had an idea of what it would be like now. So it's really nice to experience it. And I think that it's for me, one of the primary focal points of just getting up every day and doing whatever it is that we're doing. It's like, how can, at least for me, I think about this, like, how can whatever I'm doing help our immediate family of us two, and also our wider family, and how does that intermesh, the two together, whether it's work or exercise or travel or whatever we're doing, like, those two ideas always kind of pop into the forefront for me. And that kind of that's like the steering wheel in a way for me, as how is that? And then if there is a time where I'm having to say, okay, well, something can be beneficial for us, but maybe it doesn't help for that, then I'm like, okay, well, where is that? What does that leave me? What decisions did I make? So yeah, I think it's an interesting, dynamic to have, and we're in a unique space, where we're at. I don't know too many other people that are in our particular situation in our space. So we get to kind of like forge our way and see what works.
Yeah, we get to create this life.
Yeah, exactly. So on that note, anything else, Anne, you want to talk about as we kind of come to the end of our episode 1, season 3, or season 3, episode 1, whichever way we want to say it.
3113.
3111.
Well, Dorian, this was a very nice time to sit here and reflect.
Yes.
On what we've been up to.
Yes.
And I am now looking forward to this little project, so to speak.
Yeah.
And coming up with some new things to share with all of you listening.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting to use Crown Heights Radio for other things other than music.
That's right.
Yeah. Recording live from Crown Heights Radio. Just letting you know. So, yeah, this is our universal force. Anne and Dorian season 3, episode 1. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.